Hello, my name is Elisa Morin. This is going to be my ethics final, the TAP instructed video. So here we go. Situation part number 1. It's 2021. You've completed your bachelor's in ASL English interpreting last year. You've been able to do small amounts of work of interpreting as a substitute in educational systems, our settings, both K-12 and secondary, as well as team assignments with your former internship mentor. It is now early January and you begin working at a local university doing ongoing undergraduate courses this term that meet for 3 hours each week for each session. Approximately 1 week before class, you receive detail about the course instructor, deaf students, and team interpreters. Situation 2. It's the same deaf student for both classes. You know this deaf person from the enrollment in various interpreting program activities. You'll be working with different team interpreter for each courses. One of the interpreters you are familiar with is quite involved in the local community, deaf community. The other interpreter you have not met before. What are you considering about preparing for your work this university? What demands are in play? Some things that I'm thinking about are, okay, where am I going to stand? Who is the deaf client? How am I supposed to go up and ask the professor and introduce myself as the interpreter? Being able to open those doors with the deaf client and with the two interpreters and introduce myself and make that relationship and have conversation about what is going to happen in regards to interpreting. What controls might you take prior? What actions might you take prior? I don't know. I definitely would. The actions that I would take were, again, to go and meet the professor, introduce myself as interpreter, meet the deaf student, and engage in conversation, and then introduce myself to the new interpreter and start from there. The demands that are in play, that is a classroom setting. There is one deaf student. It is a classroom of hearing people, I can assume. And yeah. Situation part 3. Last night you had a successful and supportive experience while working with Juana in the psychology class. Teaming went smoothly and the deaf student seemed satisfied with the work and the fact that you would be the one to interpret for them. Situation part 4. Tonight you were interpreting for the other class, sociology. Prior to arriving tonight, you found some basic information about the team interpreter, Leona, whom you've been working with from the interpreter coordinator and the other team interpreter. She's been interpreting for 20 plus years, has deaf parents, and never went through formal training. She works full-time in another job unrelated to interpreting in the deaf community. She works part-time to the university interpreting. Your first opportunity is to meet her and talk with her about 10 minutes about the course your both interpreting began. You introduced yourself since you began to tell you how exhausted she was from a long day and how she just wished that she was going home. What are you thinking? What would you say to Leona? Oh my goodness, I would say, wow, 2 jobs, that's insane. I'm sorry that you feel so stressed out and that you're really exhausted and tired from a really long day. However, we have a deaf consumer who has requested our service, so we're going to have to just drop on our best attitude and buckle down and be able to interpret for him as efficiently and professionally as possible. Situation part 5. You've decided to try and steer the conversation politely to discuss strategies for teaming so that you can get a feel for how she works as a co-interpreter, so you can share your preferences and needs. Every time you attempt to bring up the issue of teaming, she simply says, "I'm flexible, don't worry about me." The most you've managed to discuss and agree on was switching every 20 minutes, and that she would begin. It is now the second week of class in the second session of the sociology class. Since you didn't have time prior to the first class to discuss some of your needs and teaming preferences with Leona, you made a point to share some things with her after class. She seemed open, and she said that she was not used to teaming in the way that you're proposing, but she would give a shot. Situation part 7. You both determined that Leona would begin again this week. After you switch, she stays in the room and appears to be attentive. She provides you support and when you ask for feeds. All in all, the teaming is going much better than it did last week. During the first break, 1 hour, Leona says she needs to leave 40 minutes early tonight because something has come up. She suggests that you can interpret longer for 20 minutes right before she has to leave. That way, you would just have... She suggests that she can interpret longer than 20 minutes right before she has to leave. And that way, you would just have the 40 remaining minutes to interpret and rest since you had a longer break. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, wow, this wasn't the plan that we initially agreed on. This is kind of weird that you are in a professional setting and you are dipping out on me. And I feel like if we were a team, you need to stick by my side because I would do the same for you. I think that's really stressful for us to have a plan and then for her to say, oh, it's fine. Like if I add extra 20 minutes here, you can have an extra 20 minutes here. However, not having an interpreter there to give you feeds and to give you support and feedback is really hard when you are teaming and there's no team. I would respond with, oh, okay, I understand. I would be upset that I would internalize that, and I would see that that was an interpersonal demand, but my interpersonal demand would probably be, you know, being nice to her and understanding that stuff happens and life happens and trying to be reasonable about it. But interpersonal, I would feel pretty distraught and pretty scared and pretty alone. What is influencing your decision to reply this way? I am trying to be ethical and as nice as possible, and I'm trying to put my morals and values aside. I'm trying to understand where she's coming from, and if I was in the boat, how would I want another interpreter to respond? I would be, if I were in that situation, I'd be really intimidated and scared to say this to another interpreter because this is serious. This is a job. You are on a job, and you're dipping out 20 minutes early. Just because you're swapping 20 minutes here and there doesn't necessarily mean that you've completed the job. So I would try my hardest to be nice, but also be firm in saying, hey, like, this is not acceptable from a professional interpreter. But I don't know how I would say that. And I don't know if I would say that because I don't think I am confident enough in myself to say that. Situation part 8. It is now the 6 weeks of class. You've gained some confidence and comfort. Okay, cool. Teaming has continued to be great in the psychology class with Luana and has continued to be okay with Leona in the sociology class. The only thing is that now is uncomfortable now that Leona has left 40 minutes early twice. 40 minutes? Was that? Oh, she needs to leave 40 minutes early. Okay, well, that makes a huge difference. I thought I read 20 minutes, but it's 40. Again, this week, Leona says she needs to leave early. Yeah, no, this is unacceptable at this point. This is the 3rd time that it's happened, and I thought it was 20 minutes, so I gave her a little bit of lenience. But now that I know it's 40 minutes and that I misread that, now I'm like, okay, like, this is, something's got to change, because you can't be dipping out on your profession in your job so that way you can do whatever the heck you have to do after the job. Your job should be a priority, one of the biggest priorities in your life. Not saying that family and your health is not, but the fact that it's happened 3 times now and it's the 6th week, I mean, that's almost every, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I want to be graceful and give her the benefit of the doubt, but then again, at the same time, she's kind of screwing me over, and I care about me, and I care about my mental health, and I care about what's going on interpersonally in my life, and I feel like with her doing that 3 times, I think the first time I would have given her, you know, whatever, you know, you said you're sorry, we figured it out. The 2nd time would have been a and then the 3rd time, so now, part 8, I would definitely bring it to my supervisor and not be a tattletale because that's not who I am, but I would definitely tell my superior so that way I get paired with an interpreter who's actually going to show up and stay up, I guess. What are you thinking? Yeah, how are you? I would, again, yeah, the prompt number 5, what actions would I take? I think for the 3rd time I would definitely go to my supervisor. How I would respond, I would say, okay, you know what, you can leave, that is your choice. However, this is going to affect our working relationship, I think I would say, and therefore I'm going to have to take some action in regards to you not being here when you were on the job and when you're supposed to be on the job. Again, when I'm thinking, I'm pretty upset. But not showing it. Interpersonally upset, but interpersonally I'm able to communicate to her efficiently and professionally, and make efficient decisions that is going to only benefit me and my job and my deaf consumer. And with her dipping out like that, that is affecting me, my job, and the deaf consumer. Therefore, something's gotta go. So, situation part 9. It is now the 8th week of class. You are feeling comfortable in the psychology class, and you're enjoying working with Juana. You have learned a lot from her and appreciate her support. The students have written an exam and quietly working. You and her debrief about the work in class quietly during an ASL during the exam. She then asks you how your other interpreting class is going. You team in that class with Fiona, right? I hate teaming with her. She's so unprofessional. I can't believe she's still getting classes here. How is it going with her? Oh boy. What are you thinking? I don't feel comfortable at all with this conversation. I feel like you are talking negatively about another interpreter, and just because I might understand where you're coming from or feel maybe the same things, I don't think you discussing it in a interpreting job, especially with a deaf consumer bias, is really the appropriate way to go about that. If you feel that same, how I would respond, I would tell her to talk to her supervisor, and I would tell her to stop talking to me because I do not appreciate negative talk about other people. Again, I might agree with you, I might disagree. It does not matter. Just because you're signing an ASL does not mean that it is okay to start talking about an interpreter the way that you are interpreting, or the way that you are talking about her. Why would I do this? To set boundaries for myself, because I'm an empathetic person and I don't want to stick on what she's going through, because I'm able to go through situations and say, hey, this happened, and move on and keep going about it. I know the resources that I have. I have supervision. I have the demand and control schema. I have all these certain demands and controls that I am able to process in my own brain, and on paper I can seek help from my professor and from my colleagues. And I know that I am capable of having something happen to me and then consistently going on about my day. And so because of that, I feel like I would respond that way to Juana and be like, hey, we should not be talking about this, unfortunately. So being able to set that boundary and not having her cross it. So reflect. What did you learn about yourself through this process? Upon reflection, what values do you notice at play in your decisions and processing from these situations? I learned about myself that, wow, this is a really hard exercise, and I feel like I just gave you a whole bunch of blah, and I don't think it really made any sense, so I apologize about that. I don't think I really understood what I said because I don't know what's going on up here, but upon reflection, what values did you notice at play? The values I definitely noticed is that I am an empathetic person, and I know that, and in order to prevent things from sticking on me and becoming toxic or becoming like overbearing, I guess, I seek supervision. I have all these different controls that I am able to go to and seek help from. I also know my boundaries, and I know my limits, and I know what I can and cannot handle. And when people start talking badly about another interpreter, I instantly have that gut reaction of, okay, this is not okay, and this is not acceptable, and this needs to stop. What influenced your decision throughout the process? I really thought a lot about my own interpersonal demands and intrapersonal demands. I thought about environment. I didn't really think about paralinguistics, but I definitely thought about the environment demands and how we're sitting in a classroom, we're with a deaf consumer. The deaf consumer might not even be watching outside, but the fact that, you know, he or she can look up and see what she's talking about is just really unprofessional and unethical of an interpreter, and I would have to say something about that. And just because I have to say something about that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It means that, hey, this is something that can't be addressed in the certain situation that we're in right now, but this is something that can probably be debriefed with another person in a different time frame, and that would be more professional. How would you use this information for your professional and ethical growth. I will use information as, hey, yeah, I am growing, I am processing it, and even though this is like a really different exercise, I'm not really sure what I'm saying it makes sense, or if it's correct or not. I noticed that, hey, a lot of the things that I've learned in ethics are popping up slowly in my vocabulary, in my brain, in my processing, and how I make decisions is definitely heavily affected on what I've learned from class so far, which is great because it means I'm learning. And that is it. Thank you.